Good afternoon, everybody. This is the Town of Dewey Beach monthly town council meeting. It's being held at the Dewey Beach Life Saving Station as well as via Zoom. Today is December 19th, 2025, and it's 3 o'clock. With that, I'd like to open and convene the town commissioner meeting and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand and remove your hats. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Next item is roll call. Commissioner Bauer.
Present.
Commissioner Gibbings.
Here.
Commissioner Persinger.
Here.
Commissioner Jasinski.
Present.
Mayor Bill Stevens, all five present. We also have our council, our town manager, as well as our chief of police and other members of our community here. With that, can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed unanimously. Can I have a motion for the approval of the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The next item, as we go through this meeting, is for public comment for any non-agenda items. We have what may seem to be a little light of a meeting, but anyone here for public comment for non-agenda, please come on up, state your name, address, and you're here. Yeah, please.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Mark Wagner, and I'm actually from Baltimore, Maryland, and I'm here representing IQ Fiber. I'll be brief, but I wanted to use this public comment time to let you guys know that we're going to be commencing our construction of our fiber optic broadband project system in the DelDOT controlled areas, which is a lot of Dewey Beach. So I wanted to make sure we're going to try to get as much of this done before it gets crazy busy, which is this winter. We're IQ Fiber. We're actually located out of Jacksonville, Florida. I'm the vice president for new markets. I'm from Baltimore. One of my favorite places on earth is Dewey Beach. So I'm very proud to be here. What we're bringing is an all fiber optic network broadband experience. It's state of the art, and we will be utilizing poles where we have to, but otherwise we're going to be using directional board technology. We'll work, we definitely permit very carefully with DelDOT to make sure that we're not disruptive as we do that. But the nice thing about that type of construction is it's flush to the ground. Our mounts are not, we don't do any pedestal mounts. Everything is flush. You can drive over it. We like to partner with the community. We will definitely make sure that before we do anything, people will be notified through media, and then also we will actually tag every structure a couple of weeks before. That includes our QR code so that you can get in touch with us directly if you have any issues. If we break anything, we want to fix it. We want to make friends because we want to get customers. We're not a huge company. We're only in 5 states. And so we don't really have the opportunity to trip over ourselves in an important community like Dewey Beach. So with that said, I have some information here that includes kind of the notification process, our packages, information about the company, my information. I encourage anybody who have any questions, concerns, reach out. We'll answer them. Would love to figure out a way with the town, if it's appropriate, to sponsor some events and things to just make sure that everybody is aware of what we're doing and feels empowered to come to us with any issues or concerns.
Thank you.
And with that, I'll leave this.
I encourage you to reach out to Bill Zolper, our town manager, who can navigate for you. Thank you. Anyone else here for public comment? Kate, anybody remote?
No one's reaching
Go.
out in chat.
All right, let's move on to our reports, committee reports. Commissioner Persinger.
I don't have a formal report. We're going to be talking about the activities of the Resiliency and Sustainability Committee and also the Charter and Code Review Committee a little later on. And I'll just note that when we get into those discussions, we will have the chair of each of those committees, Deborah Goldenberg, on the Resiliency and Sustainability Committee. She's on Zoom. And Dave Lyons is here in person from the Charter and Code Review Committee.
Wonderful. Commissioner Jasinski.
No updates on infrastructure.
Commissioner Gibbings.
The finance workshop was held on December 8th, and with materials collected by Iris with the assistance of lots of people in town, we did a wonderful overview of our funding possibilities and discussed how we might have a predictable, logical income stream going into the future. There's still work to be done.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Bauer.
Aside from the Finance Committee, Marketing Committee, we have Dewey and Bloom ordered another flower box. We're still in need of more volunteers to help water these things. So they hold 30 gallons of water, so you only have to do it, once a week, every other week maybe. But so yeah, if you would like to get volunteers on every street and get more, flower boxes here. Who knew this thing was going to get as big as it did?
Sometimes it grows.
Keep growing.
Sorry. Next, Town Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Happy holidays, everybody. Welcome to our meeting. Real quick, if Kate, you could bring up the pictures. Town Hall continues to move forward. Today, they are actually delivering our drywall. The roof is almost done. It's about 3 days behind where it was because it snowed and then it froze with all the snow on the roof, and it was too dangerous for the folks to get up there and finish it. Hopefully, they'll be finished tonight with the roof completely. And when I say that, that's the plywood going on the roof, not the PVC and some of the other things, but the drywall's going in right now. As you can see, that's one of the cells. If you can keep going, Kate, that's looking at the third floor. There is going to be a huge amount of space on the third floor for storage. The next one, please, Kate. That's looking at it from another angle. And then that is the police work area where they're going to have 12 workstations there. So, I mean, it's really moving along. That's looking from the current parking lot in front of the current town hall at the back of the building. And then that's looking at the front of the building. So it's moving along, electrical, plumbing, sprinkler systems going in. And as I said, the drywall's going in today. Paving went very well. There's still a couple areas that they have to come back and touch up. They're not able to do that because of the temperatures over the past couple days. Hopefully they'll be able to get back, and there's a couple other spots they need to hit with some paint. So hopefully they'll be doing that. I do have a list of folks that called me and emailed me and said, hey, I want my driveway markings moved to the left or to the right. And before we go to paint those driveway markings, we will be doing that. We did have Mr. and Mrs. Claus come visit us at Town Hall. It was a nice visit. And then the chief and I and the mayor and Commissioner Gibbons, we were at the menorah lighting out at the lighthouse the other day. Very cold, but it went very well and very well attended. And I'd like to thank Dewey Beach Business Partners for the Christmas tree lighting up at Pfeiffer's and for the Christmas tree lighting down at the lighthouse. Kelly, Ranieri, Jimmy, Monty, Vince, and the whole Dewey Beach Business Partner folks. The police analysis. Remember, there was one done back in 2019. The new one is done. It's in draft, and it will be up, and we hope to present it, Mr. Mayor, at the January meeting. Okay, it will be posted beforehand so folks can look at it. The way I'd like to set it up, Mr. Mayor, is it's 29 pages. I didn't want a PowerPoint unless you want one with each page. Captain Warren will come in, give a summary of what he found, talk about that, talk about the changes since 2019, talk about his recommendations, and then take questions from the public and from the commissioners. That's okay.
Okay, sounds good.
Army Corps of Engineers, I've been playing phone tag. I wanted an update from them for this meeting for the Reed Street Pump Station. If you remember, back in 23, worked with Senator Coon's office, got $1 million grant to put a pump station in at the end of Reed Street, which is probably the worst flooded street in the town. Army Corps finally got a hold of them on Wednesday. They said the money has been put on hold. The funding has been put on hold. I asked why. They said, all they can tell me is the money is put on hold. I said, can you come to my meeting on Friday by Zoom? They said, no. I said, can you give me something in writing? They said, no. So our project and an Oak Orchard project right now are on hold. So what I asked Kate and Jeannie from our office to do on our town webpage, if you go under Dewey Beach News, you click on federal funding, and it brings up a statement saying the funding is now on hold. And then I had them pull Senator Coons, Senator Blunt Rochester, and Congressperson McBride's information. So if anybody from the public wants to email or call their offices, you can do that. The numbers and email addresses are right there. And then they also drafted a form letter. So all you have to do is go in and click on the form letter, put the Congress or U.S. Senator at the top, and it's got everything laid out, and then sign it at the bottom. That is all on the town webpage, and I would encourage people to do it. The Cape Gazette's been made aware of it. I'm gonna let the News Journal make them aware of it, so they can also try to get to the bottom of why the Army Corps of Engineers right now is withholding the funds for that project. Very disappointed, and that doesn't mean that the project's over with. We may get the funds at a later date, but right now they've been told they have to hold the project. I thought the budget workshop went really well. Thank you for the budget committee and the commissioners for attending. Couple comments about our CRS scoring, which is community rating score with FEMA. Back in 2015 to 2020, we were audited from 2015 to 2020 about how the town complies in the 100-year flood zone with FEMA in the National Flood Insurance Program. We were scored on that. Before 2015, we were at 8. After the audit, which was in 2020, we went to a 9. Why did we go to a 9? Okay. During that audit, it was discovered that the town from 2015 to 2020 was not part of the Sussex County Hazard Mitigation Program. We had been getting points for that. Actually, we were part of the program, so they took 137 points away from us during that time. And there was a couple other reasons why we lost points during 2015 to 2020. But I want to make it clear that our building official, Dawn Hicks, was not the building official during that time. She got hired September 26th of 2019. So for 4 months out of the 5 years, she was here. So I want to make that clear. She was not here, and I was not here until 2021 during that time. But what are we doing to increase our score, right? We want to go back to a number 8. That's where we want to be back, is at a number 8. As you know, it came out of Charter and Code that we went from base flood elevation +1. We passed base flood elevation, I believe it was in May, Mr. Mayor, to base flood elevation +2 with an option to go to 3. We're hoping that helps our score. What else happened? In 2023, Dawn Hicks got us in the Sussex County Hazard Mitigation Program. We are now in that program. It's been approved. So when we have our next audit, we should get those points back. And there's a couple other things that the commissioners and Charter and Code are doing to try to get those points back so we can go back from a 9 back down to an 8. What other small towns between Lewis and Fenwick, and what scores do they have? Lewis is at an 8, Rehoboth is at an 8, Dewey's at a 9, Bethany's at an 8, South Bethany's at a 9, and Fenwick is at a 9. Seaford's at a 9 also. But I just bring those up in case you have any questions about our rating system and why we are where we are, and I'll be more than happy to answer those questions one-on-one with anybody. You can call me or email me. Real quick, I want to wish everybody a happy holidays and a Merry Christmas. And I'd like to thank the Civic League for continuing to push out information about the town and what's happening around the town. Pending any questions, Mr. Mayor, that's all I have.
Council, go ahead.
A couple of things. Regarding the federal funding, could you put that in an email as well? I mean, not everyone pays attention to the website on a regular basis, and I think getting this out as broadly as possible, I think would be very helpful.
I can do that and then add that form letter to it and send it all out with a link.
Right.
Good idea.
And then the other comment I had was, as I understand it, we're about to go into another audit
That's
process
correct.
on FEMA. I would like to make sure that we make that as educational a process as possible. And, I think make sure that we have our ducks in a row, if you will. There are a number of areas where we think we should do better. And try to make sure that if we don't do better, we understand why that's the case and how we improve that. So, I mean, I'm offering to at least be involved, monitor, be knowledgeable about the process. I'd like to know more about it. So that we can, as a group, hopefully move this forward and get a better score.
Myself and Mr. Dedes will really appreciate your assistance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other comments, council? All right. Chief?
Welcome, everyone, and happy holidays. So far, we have 13 applications in for our seasonals, and we are starting our interviews on the 23rd. So we're trying to get a head start because we're competing with the surrounding jurisdictions. So we're trying to get on that process as soon as we can. The Stuff a Truck event was very successful. There were 2 events in town, and there were multiple events in Rehoboth. It was very successful. I didn't bring the stats in, but I know there were 8 families, 23 children, lots of cash and toys raised, and some toys were given to Toys for Tots. So it was a great program, so we appreciate anybody that participated, gave donations, or gave toys. So thank you very much for that. Every year, I complete a yearly report of the police department to include grants obtained and everything, calls for service. So you'll be seeing that probably in the middle of January, that report will go out. New Year's Eve, we're all ready. We'll have a full complement. Every officer will be working, so we'll have plenty of staff out there to help everyone as they're enjoying New Year's Eve. So the stats, as you requested, gonna try to read these in the order. So I'm gonna go over the stats. One thing I want to clarify on the stats, because there were some questions on that recently, was calls for service. So the calls for service number, anytime an officer calls out with anything, or a call comes in for service, or an officer calls out and does a traffic stop, that is a call for service. So there's a little confusion on that. So that generates a number, and that is considered a call for service. So in November 2024, calls for service in the month of November 2024 is 517. This year was 368, and October 2025 was 542. November 2024 criminal arrests in November were 3. November of 25 were 7. October of 2025 were 8. November 24 traffic citations 218. November 2025 187. And October 2025 160. November 2024 traffic enforcement hours were 272. In November 25 it was 303 hours. And the month of October of this year was 336 hours. Accidents for the month of November 2024 were 3. November 25 were 2. October 25 were 5. Parking, November 24 were 18. November 25, 21. October 25, 12. Civil citations, November 2024 were 1. November 2025, 0. And in October of this year were 3. DUI arrests were exactly the same, 1, 1, and 1. So those are the statistics for November. Obviously, we don't have the December ones yet because we're not there yet. So you'll have those in January. I did want to let you guys know, it'll be on the annual report, that I just obtained another grant this week because our portable radios needed to be replaced because they were outdated. We have obtained $287,752 in grants this year, and that is full-out grants. That's not where we have to contribute anything. Those are all the grants that we obtained in money this year for all the different equipment we needed, also for traffic enforcement and for overtime hours to help with special events. So we did pretty well. And in 2024, our number, just to give you an indication, was $307,794.80. 2024 was a little higher because we did get the 2 e-trucks to add to our fleet. So we've done very well with the grants the last several years that I've been here, and we're going to continue to keep working on those.
Good job, Chief.
That's it, everybody. Hope everybody has a wonderful Christmas, and I hope to see you out there on New Year's Eve.
Great job, Chief. Thank
Thank you, Chief. Next on, before we get to the Chamber of Commerce, I'd like to ask the Rehoboth Volunteer Fire Company to come and make a few statements before the holiday.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager, Chief of Police. Those of you that know me, I am the current fire chief in Rehoboth. I've been a member of Rehoboth Beach Volunteer Fire Company for 52 years. I am a native, born and raised in downtown Rehoboth Beach. I've held the office of fire chief this go around because we elect every year for 8 years. I've actually been a fire chief, or the fire chief, for 12 years in my tenure. Have wore a white hat for probably 35 years. I am retiring. I am done at the end of this year, and I wanted to bring who is going to fill my footsteps with me tonight. That is Gordon Boswick. He will be the new fire chief at the end of the month. We wanted to put a face with a name. We had the opportunity last Friday at the breakfast at the Starboard. We introduced him around to a lot of people, but this will be the gentleman that you folks will all be dealing with. I'm not going anywhere, but
We didn't think so.
I'm going to sleep in a little bit, all right?
Okay.
But it's been a pleasure. It's been great working with you guys. You've done tremendous as far as contributions to us. Every year, we've done better, and we're going to continue to do that. Every year, we try to better our service. I have made my share of foundations down here over the last 8 years, I can tell you that. But that's unfortunate, but out of all of that, nobody has gotten hurt, and that's what we strive for. A house can be rebuilt, the lives can't. So we've got a pretty good track record. I am sure and very confident that Gordon will carry this on. He's going to give you business cards before he leaves, so you have his phone number, not mine. But that is fine. You can still call me. We're going to work very close together over this year, obviously, to make the transition and move along. Listening to the chief stats here, we have increased also. Every year, our runs increase in our fire district. And we have a district. It's not just Dewey, it's Rehoboth, out to Route 24, West Angola, and we go all the way to the inlet. So we have a pretty large area that we take for. The difference between us and some of the other areas here is there's a lot of water out here. All right, but we are responsible for part of that too. And that's why we maintain our boats and stuff that we do. But please give Gordon your support. Thank you for supporting me. And at this time, I'll wish you a happy holiday also. And I'd like the new chief to go ahead and say hi.
Hi, my name's Gordon Boslett. Like I said, I've been in Delaware for about 30 years. Actually, you can tell by my accent, I'm a New Yorker. So I've been at Rehoboth Beach Fire Department for about 20 years. And I'm excited to be taken over as chief. And, my mentor, Chuck, will assist me in the transition. So if you guys have any questions or anything like that, just reach out to me. I'll give you my business cards. I also want to wish you guys a happy Christmas and a good New Year.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Chuck, I'm sitting on the Chuck. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Yes, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard.
Yes, thank you.
Good luck.
Good to be here.
Thank you, Chuck.
Sure.
Next on the agenda, Chamber of Commerce, the Dewey Beach Chamber of Commerce.
That's right.
Okay. Well, hi, everybody. I kind of missed you. Let me give you the latest first on me. So you know I'm retiring. However, they've kept me on as a consultant, so I won't be under roof, and I won't be completely gone for at least 6 months. So, but I won't be in the office. You'll have to call me on my cell phone. Okay. Okay. First, I want to tell you the visitor guide. So we do over 100,000 copies of the visitor guide. It's created under roof. It's sent to the printer, and they mail it out from there. We print it, any magazine, any media, any TV, any way we can get the word out that these are the areas you want to come. You want to come to Dewey Beach, Rehoboth Beach, this area, to promote it, and we can track it. So that's underway right now. It has to be done end of January, get it back mid-February, and then we start responding to all of the ads wherever we placed it and people want the book. It also goes online, but you need the hard copy too. Budget, we're currently in process of the Chamber's budget. We are also involved with the Southern Delaware Tourism Board meetings and their revamping of the way their organizational structure. The Chamber is also going through an organizational structure. Santa's House is up and running, 20th, 21, 22nd, and 23rd. So we've had over 1,800 visitors to Santa's House so far. So I think that broke a record, I'm not sure. Sea Witch Festival, the financials were published in this week's Cape Gazette. So you'll see where the money came from, where it went, anything you want to know about that. Ribbon cuttings, we continue to do the ribbon cuttings. Holiday lobby, decorating contest in the hotels. We continue to do that. And our Chamber's legislative representative still is continuing to be at all the meetings. Let me give you a little bit on the accommodation for Dewey. On a Wednesday last year, 90,000. Okay, so we're doing a comparison here. This year, 96,000. Saturday, last year, 114,000. This year, 121,000. So it's up, and it's up all the way. It's been interesting because when you do the count of the overnight stays in hotels statewide, upstate has been much lower than us. So Rehoboth, Dewey, Route 1, that is beating all the other areas in Delaware. And unless you have a question, that's it. I bought 2 bricks, didn't I?
I'm glad you brought that up.
Not the chamber, me. Yeah.
Thank you, Carol.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol.
Have a wonderful holiday.
Yes, the chamber was kind enough to also send out an email yesterday, an email blast to help us with our brick campaign. I just wanted to provide, even though it's not on the agenda, but since I'm the mayor, I can insert what I want to insert. Just to give you an update, okay, can you bring?
Like your spreadsheet?
Spreadsheet first, yeah. This is a document that we've looked at in the past. To date, provided that there have been very few little change orders to the construction of our new town hall. But on the path of trying to reduce our overall debt service, we have obtained $420,000 so far towards our goal of $1 million, of which the donors that are there, this will be on the website, and we thank everyone who has participated, very much so. Thank you for the donations received. And we're going to continue to push out for the donor wall as well as for the bricks that we're selling as part of the south side of the building. Do you have anything, either of those illustrations handy? Specifically, the brick one is what I was thinking of.
I brought
It's
some
not
brick
there.
forms.
The brick forms in the back,
In the
just in
back,
case.
Yes, sir.
It's a process. It's the first time we've ever done these types of fundraisers, so it'll get out there. I know that, obviously my wife and I have bought a brick because we want to see ourselves. No, and hopefully you want to see yourselves too. But it's actually going to be, when you think about it where it is, it'll be where you run there. It'll run that south side of the building connecting to where our current parking lot is, to the front of the street. And the only way really to get into Town Hall will be through Route 1. So it'll be a well-traveled place. And that's all I'll say about that. All right, let's get to the meat of the agenda. A, presentation by Strawn, did I say that correctly? Strawn Environment and GMB Engineering regarding the development of a town resiliency plan related to the climate change and flood risk. Commissioner Presker.
Yeah, let me turn this over to the chair of the committee, Deborah Goldenberg. I think she'd like to introduce this. I believe she's hopefully still on.
See her.
She's muted.
Can you hear me?
There she
Good
is.
afternoon. So our committee members have worked very hard to collect as much information as possible to address what is a known risk in Dewey of flooding and the problems that we know are going to get worse. After extensive research and investigation, including contacting many neighboring towns in the area, it's become clear we've exhausted what we believe we can do at this time to address the changes that Dewey's risks require. As our members, and in all due respect to the commissioners, none of us have the expertise as the engineers of companies that specialize in this area do. Based on information from neighboring towns, our members contacted companies that perform this type of work and who have also worked for Dewey. We have also issued questionnaires to companies, and 2 of the companies who are qualified to perform the kind of work that Dewey requires have responded. We have those representatives today, Larry Trout of Stroughton Environmental and Brent Jett of GMB. Individually or together, these companies are prepared to evaluate Dewey's needs and make recommendations if they've done for other towns with similar flooding issues as Dewey's risks present. They're willing to work together to perform recommended work in parts. These companies have previously done work of a similar nature for Dewey. Their work would not be repetitive or duplicative of work that's already been done, but would take the studies that have last been done and analyze the work that may be in progress or intended progress and figure out what it is that Dewey is going to require through an evaluation and further study. They're basically going to analyze the Dewey risks that are existing now and would be predicted to occur in the near future and update the studies. I believe the last thorough one was done in 2017, although we are aware that there have been numerous projects to address flooding issues that Dewey has. This would be comprehensive and what other towns have already done, including, as you may recall, when it was first brought up a few meetings ago, there was talk about what St. Michael's has done, what some of the other jurisdictions have done. While our committee is aware that many other projects are ongoing and have been recommended, Dewey does not have a current comprehensive evaluation which the town needs in order to meet FEMA requirements, to reduce the overall cost of flood insurance for Dewey property owners, and to generally evaluate what projects Dewey should be implementing to address the clear risk that the flooding will cause if this evaluation is not done and the items that need to be addressed are not identified. So we have asked the members of these two companies to speak to the commissioners, and I would ask the commissioners to hear from them and ask whatever questions you may still be having, because our committee feels that hiring a consultant to perform this study is the next step.
Thank you, Deborah. So with that, I will turn it over to the two company representatives.
Brent Jett with GMD. Thank you for having us.
I'm Larry Trout with Strong Environmental.
Thank you.
So give us an overview of what you see from a project standpoint.
Typically, when it comes to like a resiliency report, a lot of our clients and towns and councils and commissions and everything look at it as a very daunting task, and it is. It's overwhelming. When you look at the inundation maps that are put out, when you look at the FEMA flood maps, when you look at pictures from Sandy, when you look at pictures from Katrina, it's a very scary topic. And a lot of people don't know where to start. So Larry and myself, we both have the gray hair to show for this. This is what we do. This is what we eat, breathe, and sleep. We kind of take an engineering approach, look at the risks, look at your tolerance for risk, what you're trying to protect against, look at the impacts, the hot spots, the vulnerable areas, and kind of put together a package with immediate goals, short-term goals, mid-term goals, and long-term goals. There are some things in the long-term goals none of us are going to see. Knock on wood, hopefully we don't get level before that. They're out there, but they're in writing. So there is a goal to be headed towards. The immediate ones, some of them are very simple. Some of them, like I wrote the one in South Bethany, I think everything on the immediate list was free because it was code changes. It didn't cost the town a thing to do any of these things. There were many of those in St. Michael's as well. St. Michael's has used my report and leveraged, I think, 6 different grants in addressing their weaknesses, their vulnerabilities. So, before they could have said, hey, we think that's a good project, but the fact that it's written down in a report, it's addressed in the county mitigation program, now that you're in the county hazmat program, you can go back to them on the next revision and implement or slide some of these things in there so it's built in there, which makes you eligible for federal grants as well. Like some of those things, it's not known about the layers of what you need to do. But I will also say in the next round of comp plans, there needs to be a resiliency kind of undertone and chapter in there. Any resiliency report you can do can serve as that. So you don't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel or hire somebody that specifically has that portion or have them kind of muddle through it. If you really want somebody else to do the comp plan that's not really good in the resiliency arm, you can kind of take that report and put it in as the resiliency portion of a comp plan update. FEMA is requiring resiliency to be addressed. Bond agencies now are requiring a resiliency thought process in order to get a AAA rating on any bonds that you may go borrow. So there's a lot of layers to everything in there. Go ahead.
Who's going to both present and then do questions?
Sure, that works.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Go ahead.
But let me get, well,
Yeah, go ahead.
there's a lot of material
Right.
that you've already provided, GMB has already provided.
Right.
It's in the packet of materials that are posted on the website for today. And I think the Strawn environmental presentation was added separately from the basic resiliency package. But what I was just discussing with the mayor is that I think it would be good if both of you give us your presentation, then we can have questions at that point. If that's okay with you guys.
Yeah, that's fine, whatever you guys want to do.
Sure.
So I've been doing work here in the Delaware coastal communities for about 15 years. And last 10, I've been actually working in Dewey Beach. So a lot of the work that I've done in Dewey Beach has been focused on stormwater issues, done some shoreline restoration stuff. We were actually doing a project down at Sunset Park right now that Bill's familiar with. That's kind of stalled because of property issues. But and Brent and I worked together in the past. I actually supported him on some of the St. Michael stuff he did, and so we're supporting him on some other projects. So I'm a water resources engineer, so I come at it from a hard engineering perspective. Have worked a lot with communities on stormwater and water quality issues. I've done a lot of work with the Delaware Center for Inland Bays, which is obviously focused a lot on the water quality aspect. So a few years back, there was a plan that was done for Dewey Beach. It was a stormwater plan, Phase 2 it was called, which was built on work that Cotton Engineering had done previous to that. So I was with a different firm, did that plan. That was, a lot of it was focused on stormwater quality because it was for the Center for Inland Bays, but we did look at some of the flooding issues as part of that. And because of that, we were able to get grant funding. I've also been involved in a lot of DELDOT projects and DENREC projects for that matter. But I've helped get the town grant funding, several types of grants over the last 10 years, basically. So I'm also actually currently working with Fenwick Island, the town of Fenwick Island, to help them develop a resilience plan and to prioritize projects for them to help solve some of their problems. Also in Maryland, we're currently doing a number of resilience plans for 9 communities throughout the Chesapeake Bay in Maryland as part of the NIFWIF grant. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, which is national, the Federal Wildlife Federation, the National Fish and Wildlife Federation has a grant, and the University of Maryland Environmental Finance Center is administering, applied for that grant, and we're providing technical support. The reason I bring it up is they've also applied for the same grant to do the same thing for Delaware, around the Delaware Bay communities and the shore communities. So they haven't been awarded yet, but it could be a potential way for you to help fund this resilience plan if they do that, because that's what we're doing for these communities around the Chesapeake Bay. So lot of experience with grants, a lot of experience in Dewey Beach, specifically looking at stormwater and some of those issues. So if nothing else, I can basically give you guys a bunch of information and help show you what's been done and what's worked well, what hasn't worked, what, where some of the problems are, and then, look at it comprehensively, like Brent said. But, I've got some pieces of the puzzle, I guess, is the long and short of it. So.
Okay, just a question. I don't know, the committee spent a lot of time on this. I mean, they're very familiar with all of the terminology and the issues that surround this kind of thing. But I just wondered if you could, each of you, just give us kind of a quick summary of what you think the elements are of a resiliency plan.
Looking at the risk, addressing your tolerance for your risk and living with the water. I mean, flooding, you have two options: either raise everything or keep the water off, or learning to live with it. Honestly, three. But the tolerance of learning to live with it, we need to understand that so we can really address guidance of how to move forward. That budget, yes, it comes into play all along the way. At every step, we're going to address potential grant opportunities to do these. We don't expect any of our communities to burden these costs 100% themselves. There needs to be manpower put into it and understanding, but when the report's done, it's almost a comprehensive plan of resiliency that can be addressed and refreshed and looked at. But so looking at the problems, reaching out to the public, figuring out where the hot spots are. I can run all the models and maps every day, but if I don't understand that this portion of this road floods all the time, then I'm deficient in what I'm providing CAC.
Anything to add to that, or?
No, I think for the most part, Brent's touched on all of it. Like I said, you guys have done some stuff. I'm aware of some of the stuff you've done, like Bayard, you have the pump station there, some of the stuff at Reed Avenue and several other places. So you guys, have some experience coming up with solutions, but a holistic plan is, as far as I know, hasn't really been done. And so that's where we can help. Like I said, don't reinvent the wheel, use some of the pieces that have already been put together and try to figure out a comprehensive, strategy. I will say, part of it, and as Brent touched on, is what risk are you willing to, and he touched on it earlier, it's short-term, medium-term, long-term goals. DelDOT's looking at the SR1 corridor. Obviously, that's a really important part of this too. So coordinating with whatever plans they have in mind should be part of it too. DelDOT, some of the DelDOT's drainage along SR1 are contributing to some of the issues you guys have on your Bayside streets and stuff like that. So coordinating with DelDOT in some of these projects I've done in the past was in close coordination with DelDOT. So that's going to be important as well. So I think that's the other thing is, besides the community involvement, there's other stakeholders that, Sussex County, DelDOT, others that, need to coordinate with.
Just one other quick question, I'll let someone else. Is there kind of a typical time horizon that other municipalities have used in terms of looking forward? Are they looking at 10 years, 20 years, 30 years?
I would, 10 years ago, it was 2050. Considering that's only 24 years and 40, whatever, from now, that in theory is only 20 years out, which isn't going to really give you the full impact of sea level rise. So 30 years is at least a good thought process, because 30 years is a mortgage cycle. So if anybody's coming in to buy something, they want to know that they can get through a mortgage cycle. When we design things for engineering, our thought process on infrastructure is a 30 to 50 year infrastructure life cycle. So I tell start at 30, and 30 is on my long-term end. but start looking and going towards that 50 if you can do it.
Council, any questions for either of the presenters? I have a real quick question. You know, this is obviously an investment into our community, investment to long-range plan for our community. It's great that there's some funding available to cover the costs of this study. Question I have is, how often should the study be reviewed or updated? Is it something that it's not one and done? I assume that every so many years you'd have to come in and update it. And what is that timeline?
So,
God bless you.
bless you. As long as you're moving forward with the goals, you can probably push it out like 10 years, like a comp plan. If you're lagging behind and there's hurdles and challenges with funding, like we've seen this year, maybe 5 years and readdress. But I don't want it to be in 5 years, we've only checked 2 boxes and this thing failed. You know, that, I don't want that defeated. So there's language in there that I was always moving forward, you know, and supporting growth and keeping it alive. So in that regard, somewhere in there.
Okay.
We can write it in the report, we can discuss it, you know, maybe it's reviewed in 5 years and readdressed in 10 as
part of it.
Yeah.
Have you seen with the other communities that you have done this for, especially some of the beach communities, the anticipation or actual effect on the NFIP CRS rating?
So doing this report will get you bonus points for the above and beyond.
Okay.
And having it. There'll be recommendations in there, kind of with a thought for CRS credits. The bad thing about that is they're changing the book on CRS right now. So.
Can you elaborate?
I haven't read it yet, but
Okay.
I just know there are
You mean they're
changes.
just literally changing the books?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they're changing the point.
I thought they were just changing the goalposts and that's what you were trying to.
That may be part of it.
Okay.
I don't know. I think because there were a lot of communities that got a 6 and were getting large discounts, that was taking money away from FEMA, seen as a bad thing, so they've kind of rearranged the rules of the game now.
Okay, all right. I want to ask you.
What we do there, almost everything can be seen as a CRS credit type thing. So when you implement some of these things, it's in the report, you've implemented it, you can go back to CRS and work with creative ways. I will say in 2019 and 2020, when they did the re-reviews of those points, there was a push to drop people at that time as well. And whoever they had doing the circuit riding was really strict with points. So if you were in that 2020 review cycle, like Dewey Beach was, if you were in 2018 or 2022, you probably weren't banged as hard as 2020.
Great, thank you.
One of the things I wanted to add about the frequency, I think one of the things that would be really helpful, in my opinion, though, is once this plan's developed, and Brent alluded to a little bit, is tracking the progress and keeping that, you know, in a story map on a website or something like that, just so you guys can keep, so it's almost like a living document, you know, to basically track all that stuff, because I know that, you know, you guys know there's turnover and there's things like that, so it's good to have documentation of what the plan was and how well you're, you know, moving in the right direction, as Brent said, so.
Commissioners, any other questions for them?
Deborah, do you have any questions, or Kelly, or in the back there, you've worked on this too, you might have a question.
I would just add that I encourage people to read the documents that are attached. Kate has set up a file. And, you know, some of them are great examples of what exists in other communities, and you get a very clear picture of what we're doing with the goals for us as well.
Thank you.
Deborah, any questions?
I don't think I have any questions. I just think it's important for everyone to understand that the last comprehensive study, at least to my knowledge, was in 2017, and we're on the cusp of 2026. When we're talking 5 years, max 10, we are there. And so by the time this evaluation report would be done and issued, we're at the 10-year mark. And while there have been some piecemeal projects that have occurred, we really need this comprehensive plan, especially since the flooding predictions are so substantial and are so imminent. What they were predicted to be 20 years ago for today, we have indicated that through these storms and other flooding that has presented itself, that it has not only met those expectations, but exceeded it. So I believe that we need this comprehensive study. We need the expertise that a company such as those that are presenting today could provide, and that the piecemeal approach that Dewey has been implementing not going to work long range. So I'd strongly ask that the commissioners vote in favor of hiring a consulting company or allowing companies such as these two to work together. And as indicated, they're willing to put the plan together and start implementing things in part rather than taking on the cost, time, effort, et cetera, to do all of it at once.
Great. As you know, this is presentation only. But I appreciate both of you guys coming out here on a cold, actually wasn't that bad today, on a December day.
Could have been worse.
Could have been a lot worse.
Kate Hassel.
Yes. Sure.
David, go ahead.
Yeah, David Moskowitz, Dewey Beach, full-time resident. I reviewed the GMB plan for South Bethany and noted that most of it appears to be recycled information from Lewis and a little St. Michael information, rather than providing a lot of South Bethany information. And given that, a question for GMB might be what new Dewey-specific information or analysis would they actually be providing, as opposing to like repurposing most of the document. And during the presentation, the other company, Strong, cited the Reed Avenue Little Store as an example of a Dewey Beach project. However, that project was not maintained by the town as originally called for. The parking spots, which was supposed to be draining water, the town was supposed to maintain, the garden was supposed to be maintained, nothing of that was done. So before funding additional studies or consulting engagements, shouldn't the town resources first be directed towards maintaining and completing existing projects the town has already undertaken and not maintaining? And then third thought is additionally, like the materials from the Climate Change Committee, the stated goal of the engagement is, quote, a consultant may help to convince the town council that a vulnerability study is necessary after doing this study. So does that mean the town would be paying for a consultant whose primary purpose is to write a study for funding another study? So that's what's in the document. So that's just a question.
I'll just say that last quote, we're not making this interactive, but I would say that last quote is just from some of the notes that were developed as part of the committee process. That was not part of the any kind of a final scope of work. We do have a draft scope of work that's included in the document. You might want to take a look at that. It would require some additional revisions based on the discussions we've had today, but I just want to make clear that that was just part of the notes. It was not the direction that we're really going at this point.
Thank you, Commissioner Purser. Any other comments for the gentleman? Enjoy your weekend and have a great holiday.
Thanks very much.
All right, let's move on to the next item, review of the November financial reports. They are obviously on the website. I will ask if anyone has any questions of Ms. Hall, or Ms. Hall, if you want to make any statements about the financial statements ahead of time.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Commissioners. As we approach the last quarter of the fiscal year, there are some revenue areas that are doing well and some that give me a little pause. Transfer tax, barring a total shutdown of property sales over December through March, will make budget. Accommodations tax and hotel lodging tax should both be right on the projected amount. Rental and business licensing, parking, which of course the season is over, and fines have all made budget for the year. Building permits, however, are trending behind budget, and unless there are either some large projects or many, many small projects in town happening over the next couple of months, I do not see us hitting the $600,000 projected for budget building permits. When I am seeing on a what I'm seeing on a cursory view is looking like after allocations to streets and town hall construction and the rainy day account, preparing, making sure we have plenty in there, which we do right now. It's due to the change that was accepted. The town will end up with about $250,000 to the good. This is only after a cursory review. After December's numbers are in, a deeper review will be conducted so that when we get to the budget meeting in budget workshop in January, I'll have more solid numbers for everyone. However, it is not looking like there will be a large amounts of excess funds at the end of this fiscal year. Thank you.
Just for clarification, while we budgeted $600,000, or basically a balanced budget, we had $600 initially with around $392,000 being set aside for the rainy day, streets and infrastructure and town hall. You're saying that you're anticipating it's going to be $250 in addition
Yes, sir.
to that amount, okay?
But not the $500,000 to $1 million that we had over the past couple of years.
Mr. Persinger.
A couple of comments. I mean, right now, we're running about, in terms of the operating budget, about 1.2 million in terms of net operating budget performance. But clearly, we spend a lot more money toward the end of the year than we take in, just because our revenue streams are more upfront.
Yes, sir.
The thing that concerns me a little bit, and I took a look back over the last couple of years, right now, we're about 9.3% in terms of expenditures over what we projected or budgeted for, according to the summary, the financial summary, the operating financial summary. Last year, I looked back, we were about between 6 and 7% over what we project in terms of expenditures. We're about to go into a new budget process, and I'm just worried about, in terms of an exercise, are we not being realistic about our expenditures, our projected expenditures in some way, or are we just not good at projecting some of these things? I just think we need to take a hard look at some of these things. I want to make sure that when we go into the budget process this time, that we take a hard look at how we're estimating what the expenditures are going to be. How much does it really take to run the town, so that we're not running 5 to 10% over our projected spending, because that does obviously put pressure on the year-end surplus that we have available. We've been very fortunate over the last couple of years. We haven't felt the pressure because we've had excess revenues. Transfer tax has been very good. Building permits has been very good in a couple of other areas as well. Parking has certainly been very good to us as well. But we're going to get squeezed at some point. And I just want to make sure that we're very realistic about how much it costs to operate the town as we go into the budget process this year.
We have had a couple of oddities that showed up this year, like having to replace an engine in a vehicle. That could not be, predicted. Couple major repairs to the existing town hall, which once we get the new one, shouldn't happen again for quite a few years. There have been some other expenses due to the national economy that have gone up. I do plan, when I do my original presentation, to be a little bit even more conservative than I normally am on the expenses, showing them to be higher than I normally would, just to try to prevent this issue from happening, because as you are correct, things are higher this year, and it's not a good thing.
Yeah, to Commissioner Persinger's point, I mean, we'll just, a large percentage of the increase that we have year over year is in payroll related. So it's, 240 out of 360. So we're going to take a real close look at our budget estimates. That's not to say that we didn't need the lifeguards and we don't need the police to do the work that they did, or the other members of town hall, but just how the budget, I'm not saying that the actual operations are wrong, but possibly the budgets were understated. Any other questions for Sheena? Any public comment? All right. Our town clerk had to step away, and we'll ask if there's any comment when she gets back. But We'll move on to the next item of our agenda, which is D, discuss and possibly vote on draft ordinance to amend Chapter 167, Article 2 of the Municipal Code to adjust the beach assessment tax rate following the Sussex County property tax assessment reassessment. This was on last month's agenda. It was a review to look at how we have a consistent amount of revenue coming in, not for an increase in the overall beach fund, but to have it stay at its current rate. When we looked at the reassessments, there's roughly $1.8 billion worth of property being assessed. And what we looked at last month was if we applied a 0.011%, that would get us to where we are currently today in terms of the numbers. I think Commissioner Persinger did a nice job of analyzing where, for the most part, everybody's within $50 of where they are right now in terms of, or 20, I think it's $25 where they are right now. There are few that are a little bit higher, a little bit lower, but it is putting everybody on an even playing field. Kate, while you were away, just pause this. I didn't know, we went through the financials. I didn't know if there was anyone on Zoom that wanted to make a comment.
There was not. No.
Okay. All right, that's kind of an overview on this agenda item of 167. Is there anyone here from a public comment that would like to? Yes, sir. Come on up.
Jim Deegan, Hayden Road. Why is it not just a fixed fee for everyone, as opposed to based on property value, since everyone uses the same beach? Since now you are adjusting the rate anyway, why is it not just number of people divided by what you want?
Don't have an answer for that.
It's a good comment.
We don't charter change.
I know, we try not to, we'd have to do it. I think part of the thought process is that the
Jane has
value,
the answer.
I do not, but there's another comment.
All right.
well, we have discussed it, Jim, but one of the comments was that the valuation, first of all, I was looking at how many bedrooms. And say, all right, well, how many bedrooms, if it's a one-bedroom place versus a five-bedroom place, then theoretically there's more people coming from there then. And then it's like, all right, we're gonna go around and count bedrooms? No. But we assume that the valuation is taking into consideration the number of bedrooms. Okay. That was the thought process. Yes, Kate?
David, you can go ahead.
Yeah, David Moskowitz, Dewey Beach, full-time resident. There's an error in the ordinance. The ordinance states that the adjusted beach assessment tax rate is intended to be revenue neutral, which is required by the state, but it doesn't reference the assessment year against which neutrality is being measured. So if you look at the old ordinance, you'll notice it strikes out the 1992 assessed value, but it should be replacing it with a 2023 assessed value base year. Otherwise, it basically becomes a floating rate. So you need to reference that 2023 assess base year in that ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
I'm just thinking, I think that's correct. We can't, well, there are two issues. Well, first of all, there's another typo, I believe, in whereas paragraph, we have .0022 per $100 of assessed value. Well, it doesn't match the .0111 that below. I'm not sure how we got that there. See what I mean?
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll make that
So
correction.
we need to do that. There's a limitation on how much, in terms of the original ordinance, there's a limitation on how much we can increase this. And we can increase the tax rate by 20% in the aggregate of the original tax rate. So somehow we have to preserve the original tax rate and make sure that that limitation makes some sense in terms of the way we word this. So I'm hesitating a little bit.
Let's understand the problem.
Yeah,
Just pause that for a second, because
Yeah.
I looked at it as a floating rate in terms of being tied to the values as they continue to go up with this change. But looking at it from a process perspective, and I'll ask the town, and from a knowledge perspective, I assume that we take in the values from the county every year, from the state every year, and we apply the rates. So as the values change, then the tax will change also.
Well, one thing that is different, the values aren't redone every year. So You have to remember, they did the assessment in 1974, and then we had a period of like 50 years where they said this is, they basically lost a court case, and they're forced to reassess. So there wouldn't be a problem with doing Mr. Moskowitz's suggestion, but from my perspective, we're not gonna have a reassessment every year. This is gonna be probably not for a long time again. I don't know that court thing is forcing us to do it every year, or every 2, or every 3.
That's only 5.
What's that?
Every 5 years.
Every 5 years it's being done. So, yeah, we would have to adjust it again, come another 5 years, but it's not like it's an annual thing that's gonna be changing all the time.
So my understanding, I could be completely wrong, is that the values would change as homes changed hands, that the reassessed value would change to whatever the current price would be. But, okay, all right. Well, I can go either way.
I don't think that's
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, when new houses have been built under the previous tax system, weren't the new values used, the updated values used?
They tried to derive 1974 value.
July of
Strange as that sounds.
1974.
Lawyers, no offense.
No, but now I think it's just going to be a value placed on it.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, I can't hear any conversation coming from the.
I apologize,
Sorry,
Commissioner.
right. Thank you.
That's okay. Yeah, trying to be helpful.
No,
Yeah.
Could you come up?
Or that one
Yes.
works too, yeah.
Right, so
I
I'm sorry.
apologize, Elizabeth.
I was just trying to be helpful, just because I spent a lot of time looking at possible.
This is Steve Spence, attorney.
I was looking at a lot of appeal possibilities when the reassessment process was occurring. So I spent a fair amount of time reading the code and the new legislation. So my impressions from that is that every 5 years, the General Assembly passed a law that suggests that you have to reassess every 5 years. And my understanding of new construction is that a value has to be assigned to the completed job, but it's supposed to be, just like the old one was, you have to relate it back to the July 1, 2023, I think, discounted value, if you will. Pick a number, whatever the number is, $1.5 million, just use as an example. In theory, you're supposed to have some sort of comparable analysis done. I'm not sure how the retained experts did it, but they were supposed to derive a value back to the July 1, 2023 date. So it's sort of a mix of the old, but using a new date. And then in theory, every 5 years.
Thank you, sir.
I think we also may have a typo on line 18 where it says .0022.
Right,
That's what he said.
That's what you're just saying, yeah. So, I mean, I think we could certainly do what Mr. Moskowitz said, and that way.
Just put in 2025.
And just know that we have to do it every 5 years. I think the reason the code was written from line 27 to 30 the way it was when we put this in place, we hadn't been reassessed since 1974, and people didn't think we were ever going to be reassessed again. So they just did the 20% based on the rate, thinking that you'd never really change where the assessed values are. Now that the assessed values change, new language may be appropriate. I don't know if this is time sensitive, but I don't feel comfortable with us trying to figure that out on the fly, what that language would be, because it's, we have to kind of come up with something that reflects.
Please, sir.
Come on, Fred.
Well, let's look at this a piece.
You're not just talking about incorporating the 1993 reference.
I'm talking about that
No.
you would have to say something that alludes to the revenue neutrality when a property's reassessed, right? It's kind of complicated to come up with language on the fly that I think accomplishes the same 20% goal, is my point.
What does
It
beach tax
kind
do?
of requires a little bit of thought.
When's the beach tax due?
Kate, we send those out in April 1st?
All right.
We have a little bit of time. I mean, I didn't want January 1 to roll around and everybody that got reassessed from 100,000 to $1 million now has their tax bill go up 10 times. So we do have to lower
It's
this
not
rate.
going to happen.
Right, so we can work on this language and get it done in time.
All right, we'll make these changes. It's not a big
Your
deal.
tax bill could go up 5 times.
Yeah.
It could. It could. To the correct amount.
Right, but without regard to the 20%, that's a revenue, that's an overall revenue for the taxing authority, that limitation.
All right. So we're going to table this.
Yep.
And to
Motion
modify,
table.
I second that.
but we have, just as a comment, we have a very busy January meeting, so this will be tabled to February. Okay. All right. E, discuss possible vote on a draft ordinance to amend Chapter 116 definitions and Chapter 71 building construction to define maintenance activities and specify conditions for which building permits and fees are not required, and additional recommendations related to the building permit process. Commissioner Persinger, can you give us an overview before we open up for comment?
Yeah, we have kind of three pieces to this. First of all, there's a draft ordinance that provides some exceptions from permit requirements for maintenance projects that don't exceed certain cost thresholds, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But there are also a couple of other issues that came up in Charter and Code that really don't belong in the ordinance, but I think there's something that we should deal with in some sense in a formal way. Firstly, we've talked a bit in Charter and Code, we talked a bit among the town council about what happens when there's a building permit application for a property that's part of an HOA. What's the obligation of the town? And I think there's pretty strong feeling from the legal side that we not get caught in the middle of trying to enforce any HOA regulations. So the suggestion here is that we perhaps have a possible vote on a recommendation that the town should modify the building permit application process to provide notification as determined appropriate by legal counsel to a homeowners association when a property governed by the HOA is to be renovated. I would note already that the town has just in the last couple of months begun publishing on a monthly basis all of the building permit applications. So, you know, if there's any concern that anybody has about any individual property and want to know what's going on next door, the information is available on the internet now on the town website. Secondly, one of the recommendations that the Charter and Code had as well was that the town mount some sort of educational effort for property owners so that property owners know more about the building permit application process, what kinds of amendments we potentially may be making here, and also, and this is, I think, an important part, the scope of inspections that are provided by the county and the town. So again, the suggestion here is that we have a possible vote on a recommendation that the town should conduct some sort of a workshop or other educational effort on that issue. So let me turn to the draft ordinance. We talked about this, about the principles of this draft ordinance at the last meeting, and the draft ordinance would amend two sections of the code. First of all, definitions, section 1-16, where we would add a definition of maintenance activities, and there would be some specific types of activities that would be defined as maintenance. And then secondly, we would amend Chapter 71, building construction, to define, to specify conditions under which building permits and fees are not required for certain maintenance activities. So in terms of defining maintenance, we have a definition which says maintenance shall mean the ongoing duty of every property owner, operator, or occupant to keep all buildings, structures, premises, and accessory facilities in a safe, sanitary, and functional condition, consistent with the requirements of the Town of Dewey Beach Code and other applicable standards. Maintenance includes both preventive and corrective actions to preserve property in good repair, protect the public health and safety, and sustain neighborhood character. There are certain specific activities that are defined as part of this definition: repainting walls, trim or exterior surfaces, replacing or finishing flooring, repairing drywall or other wall or ceiling materials, updating fixtures such as light switches, faucets, cabinet handles, doorknobs, but excluding any relocation of plumbing fixtures and upgrading or relocation of electrical outlets and circuitry. Roofing or siding replacement not exceeding 25% of existing sheathing, cleaning or power washing surfaces, replacing window treatments or decorative elements, minor appliance or HVAC component replacements. Non-structural alterations would be allowed for patios, concrete slabs, decks, and decorative hardscaping. So that's how we would define maintenance activities. And then we would establish some thresholds for those activities. So any service, repair, or routine work that satisfies the definition of maintenance activity and has a total cost, including materials and labor, of less than $1,000 shall be considered minor property maintenance and would not require a building permit or fee. So, if you have a project that falls under that threshold, it satisfies the definition of maintenance activity, you would be able to just go ahead and start that project, get it completed, as long as the total cost is less than $1,000. For projects that are between $1,000 and $10,000, it would not require a building permit, a formal building permit or fee, but it would be subject to certain conditions. You would have to notify the building official in an officially designated manner, and that would be specified by the town or the building department. You'd have to notify them of the work that is to be performed, include a description of the maintenance activity that's to be performed, and information substantiating the total cost, including labor and materials, I've got a typo in there, of the maintenance work. And the work may proceed upon approval acknowledgement of the proposed activity. So if you have a maintenance project, it's between $1,000 and less than $10,000, you have to describe that in an official notification to the town, and you would then get an approval acknowledgement from the town, and then you could proceed with the work on that basis. Anything that's $10,000 or over, whether it's maintenance activity or not, would require a formal building permit. You'd have to go through the full process. In terms of enforcement, let me move to that. I think we can come back if there are other questions. The town would reserve the right to conduct inspections of all work performed, regardless of whether a formal building permit was issued, and to designate the inspection official. The inspections would seek to ensure that the work is consistent with all code requirements and with the approved building permit if applicable. Inspection will be required for any project for which total cost is at least $15,000, and the cost of the inspection would be added to the building permit fee. Inspections, while they would make sure that they adhere to the code, it would not validate the quality of the work that's performed by the contractor. There are, in terms of violations of the provisions of the chapter, could include a stop work order. Civil penalties up to $500 per day could be assessed for each day the violation continues. And a permit surcharge of 100% of the original permit fee could be applied to retroactive permits issued after unauthorized work has begun. I think, are the major provisions. Dave Lyons is the chair of the Charter and Code Review Committee. Would you have anything to add, any other comments to add to that?
Good afternoon, everybody. I just want to say that some of the thinking behind this was to simplify the process that we have today. Mr. Spence stood in front of the committee some months ago and suggested, Highway 1 is trying to fix things around their property and felt that they had to go through an arduous process. So this is our attempt at hearing what folks in the community have said about how we can make things move faster, how they can maintain their properties and do the upkeep. We also have to realize that we are in a floodplain. 2/3 of the town is in a floodplain, and therefore we have some requirements for FEMA to retain our National Flood Insurance Program. So some of the changes here have been made to accept those changes so that we can stay active in that program. We don't need to be in that, obviously. For those of us who live in that insurance is important to us. So there's a compromise here in that as well. So I think that was the intent of what we tried to lay out here, trying to provide some relief to the homeowners while we stay in compliance with National Flood Insurance, as well as ensuring that our code officials can enforce the code. And I do want to take a second here and just make a shout out to our town manager, to Dawn Hinks and Mr. Jim Dedes for all the hard work they do maintaining our code. It is a very difficult process. There are a lot of very demanding property developers here. There are a lot of people who don't quite understand the process. And it is a very difficult job, and I want to thank them personally for the guidance and help they've provided me, and just give them our support going forward. This is hopefully intended to make their lives a little easier and a little more reasonable for the people that they support. So, questions?
Thank you, Mr. Lyons. Open up for public comment.
Hi.
Jerry, can I actually do that? Thank you. Only because you're wearing a Washington Redskins.
All right, Jimmy Lee, 11 Van Dyke. This past year, I went through a couple of permit applications, and it was very difficult to get for very minor items, so I applaud us making those exceptions. I do want to say that we want to make sure that people are not going to try to find loopholes of avoiding doing this by basically chopping up a project into pieces, right? Because then they say, oh yeah, it's under 1,000. Oh yeah, it's under 10,000 in different pieces. So that's all I want to kind of comment on.
How do we protect against that?
First of all.
I can address that later.
Yeah, we'll adjust it. Any other public comment? Now you have to stand. Sorry.
Yes, my name is Stephen Spence, and I was asked to come to today's meeting on behalf of the Highway 1 Limited Partnership Group, which either directly or indirectly owns a number of commercial businesses in town. And the opening comment I would make is that it's a difficult subject to manage well, number one. Two, this is an improvement from where we were, for sure. I think this is a kind of a general comment, and then I was going to pass out one handout as an example of something, but the general drift in the document as drafted leans heavily toward the residential, beach home or residential home in Dewey Beach that's being maintained. And, there are lots of people who would take the view that why should I have to get a building permit to do anything associated with maintaining my home? And I get that. And to the extent the town wants to become involved in that process of the maintenance of the single family or the vacation home or the rental property area, that's a task you take on with some trepidation, I think, and I'll comment why in a minute. But on the commercial side, the practical problem that caused me to write the first letter to the town manager and to the mayor, I think, back in 2023 about this subject was the sheer volume of work that a commercial operator on in a large commercial property has to go through every summer, well, in preparation for and throughout the summer season. And while the change in the threshold from the original $1,000 up to go to the $10,000 number is a progress, clearly a progress move. The idea that we have to, using the commercial operators, the example, to come to the town for a $7,500 job or a $2,500 job to get something from the town that says we can proceed with the work is not going to work. And I say that, and I'm just going to do one little handout just that we statistically put together, a little bit of a hurry, but it's accurate as far as it goes. And if I could, I'll just keep one and I'll just hand out the rest. I think there's enough for everyone who's here. And the little worksheet that I prepared is one of our contractors who's on the site of the various Highway 1 properties almost every day during the spring and summer season. Remco is a company that does maintenance of equipment, refrigeration, plumbing, some minor electrical work. It doesn't do major electrical, but it's constantly in our locations performing maintenance of one kind or another. And the statistical analysis is, if you go to the bottom of the little chart, they issued 136 invoices to us in 2024, and 41 of them were over $1,000. If we had to come to the town at 8 o'clock in the morning, on the morning they're there to work for the day to fix a broken pipe, a toilet that's exploded, a pipe that's burst in the kitchen, ice maker that's gone down.
Pause you for a second. Commissioner Gibbings, I sent you a text with what you're talking about. Okay.
Thank you. The burden that I think the town takes on by requiring us to come to the town and get something before we endeavor to do that work that's between 1,000 and 10,000 is going to be daunting. This is just one of our contractors. And in 2025, by way of example, they issued 151 different invoices, and 50 of them were over $1,000. So the way that this draft works, I think, is that 50 times somebody has to show up at town hall to ask for permission to do what might be $2,000 job, a $1,500 job, or something that is the maintenance of the building, if you will. And that's a little scary, both in terms of, does the town have the staff? I would say now the answer is no to do that. And so we like the idea, we've always liked the idea of maintenance really shouldn't require a permit to maintain our building. And that's where we started originally. We get we're not there. Well, we're not at that point. That's not what this proposed ordinance does. And we do think it's a good advance to increase that limit, to a higher number. And I wasn't sure what the number should be. I think when I started having these conversations, at a much lower number even. So nobody's complaining on my side about the $10,000 number. But we did want you to understand that that's something we can't really do. I mean, when the Remco truck shows up on an 8 o'clock in the morning, ready to do some work that we called them after somebody destroyed something or something got damaged yesterday, we need the work done like then so that we can keep that bathroom open, keep the kitchen open, keep whatever needs work operating during, you all know, the 97-day season that we have. So, and a little longer for a number of locations. But so we were hoping that if you want, for example, us to do a report monthly, if these are the things we did last month that were over $1,000 and not exceeding 10, and here's a copy of the invoice, and here's all the, describing what actual maintenance was done. So you have statistical information about what we're doing. We're not opposed to that. We'd kind of like to be able to do it once a year, like right at the end of the season, October 1st, or pick a date, some definitive date where on a commercial side, we can report all the under 10,000 activity and take out permits for the over 10,000 activity. And we thought that would be our suggestion as to how we would intelligently be able to manage it and not overburden both our contractors and the town with this, what's the language? May proceed upon approval, acknowledgement of the proposed activity by a town building official. Well, no disrespect to our town building official, but she hasn't been full-time in ever, I don't think. And I don't think you have the staff to do that, particularly with respect to the number of things we're doing on a daily basis all summer. So now, in my other extreme world, my goal was to not have to do any permits at all for smaller jobs. And I get that's not going to happen, so I get that. But, and Alex when I spoke to Mr. Pires today, he said, I'm not against the idea, but I think it's impossible to do on a day-to-day, when the contractors are there doing their work. We need to be able to reopen. We need to get our kitchen working. We need to fix a leak. We need to do whatever we need to do on these smaller jobs, that they're there. He laughed. He said, I think somebody from Remco was at one of our sites like every day of the summer doing something.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Sure.
There were 151 invoices total, 50 over $1,000. What were the other 101?
Under
Under 1,000.
Are those under 1,000? The other 101?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So they're doing a lot of work.
Okay.
But they're doing some larger jobs but 50 still,
No, I understand.
I've got some questions for you. I guess my main question is...
This is only one of our contractors, by the way.
This proposed new regime that we're talking about would reduce the amount of permits and permission you need over the current situation, correct?
Well, we've had this ongoing dispute as to whether maintenance was really ever intended to be covered in the first place under the current statutory scheme. And so I can't say what we've been doing in terms, but I think the answer is we've not been buying permits because we're of the view that maintenance doesn't require that. And you get into a whole subset of things like, do we have to get a permit to fix our refrigeration in that part of a building? Do we have to get a permit to fix a toilet that's backed up or where a pipe has to be cleared out or whatever? There was a whole lot of disputes about that. And when we first brought it up, I think we said, we want to participate in this revision process, but we can't do what you're asking us to do.
So I guess my question for my peers is, we have this notification between 1 and 10,000, right? Which, right, the way it's written right now, you have to wait for someone to get back to you, right? And I certainly could agree that, for a business that needs someone to come in at night because toilet exploded, you got to get somebody in there. So I'm wondering if we could just put language in that says if it constitutes an emergency, they can do the notification and proactively continue with the specified maintenance activity.
Which is, I believe, this is what we do.
We always have said
But
that
we've
too.
done, but I'm saying just
Yeah, it's not
actually put
in
it
there,
in,
right.
just put it in, just put it in this.
Right, put it in the statute.
Put it in the statute that they have permission to do that. There's a combination of there's stuff that's unplanned and there's stuff that's planned. I don't really think that this new regime is too burdensome for work that's planned, okay? If it's planned work, typically you aggregate, you get a permit, and they may invoice you 5 different times because they do it on 5 different days, but you basically build one and you get it. For the unplanned stuff, which probably is mostly an emergency type thing, I think it's reasonable to say you just have to notify the town what you're doing, and so the town can basically potentially take a look at it depending on what it is. And I'm okay with us putting that in the statute. That'll moderate this a bit, and we don't necessarily have to do everything at one time. But is where I'm coming from.
Well, let's get a little bit more. I'm assuming, is there anyone else that would like to have public comment? Since Mr. Spence took more than 3 minutes.
I'll get out of here if you want.
I can justify that Renco is there half the year.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we can't run without them, quite frankly.
Ms. Lyons?
So I think it's important, the way the existing code is written, and it's important to look at this. The existing code, the way it's written, doesn't really differentiate between maintenance and new construction. There's nothing in there today. So I could, without making an indictment here, anything that you do should have a permit today. So this is an intent to back that down. And Lewis, the municipality of Lewis, actually has in their code a statute that basically says exactly what Bill Zolper's always said, that if you have an emergency, if you have a problem, you should do the work and notify the town the next day and achieve the permit the next day. So they have made a statute to do that. So to your point, that would be an easy change to make here. But the way the code is currently written today, you are supposed to call the town for any kind of work like that. I just want to be clear that that's what it is. Whether we do it or not today, that's what the code is today, is that you're supposed to do it. I'm just going to tell you that's what it is. That was the intent of what we're trying to do here, is to simplify it.
Any other?
No, yeah, it's other public comment, yeah.
Any other public comment? No. Yes, Kate.
David, go ahead.
Yeah, David Moskowitz, full-time resident. So you have D2, and the $1,000 permit following threshold was not based on FEMA guidance. Staff was tasked with consulting FEMA, and based on my FOIA request, that outreach never occurred. Instead, the $1,000 figure appears to have been estimated during discussion by a commissioner. As written, this number pulls a large volume of routine maintenance into town review, increasing staff workload and effectively creating additional town jobs without a demonstrated benefit. More importantly, it creates a serious risk for ordinary homeowners. Like, let's say someone hires a contractor for a $3,000 maintenance project. They're going to believe that no permit is required, and then they're going to be in violation. Under the way the ordinance is written, that misunderstanding can result in a stop work order and fines of $500 a day, even though the work is classified as maintenance and presents no safety issue. And it's just how it's written. If the goal is efficiency and fairness, you need to increase that threshold to at least $5,000 and adjust over time for inflation, or communicate with FEMA and have the actual number required rather than guesswork, because $1,000 is actually lower than what it is today, what it's supposed to be. And you're going to get people replacing a water heater for $2,000, and it just creates town's jobs.
Kate, anyone else? All right, we've heard a lot of comments going many different ways. Gary, commissioners?
I did have one question, is for the labor part, some people kind of do it themselves. Are we going to assign a value to people's own labor if they're choosing to do work themselves? Or are we going to leave that at 0?
I would leave that at 0.
My inclination,
Mr. Mayor, I'd also note that Sussex County has some things that they require a permit for that we have to follow. There are some items. And I noticed you did put plumbing and fixtures and other things that's here and that's where the county's gonna tell us that we have to, if you're working on outside shower, you're putting new piping in or anything like that, they require a permit. And I would ask Mr. Mayor if Jim Dedes has any comments references.
Mr. Dedes.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I do have some comments and I have quite a few as a matter of fact. Number one is that we do get complaints from other neighbors that work is being done in a house. They see people coming out. Regrettably, we send the code enforcement officer to see what's going on. So I don't know how we prevent that for small jobs where no permit and no notification is required. I also assume that a business, if they get a contractor, does that make a difference? Because this seems to be more towards a private owner doing work under $1,000. So if they get a contractor in, I assume we're going to require that they have to have a business license. So those are some of the things I think we should add. As our town manager mentioned, some of the things that you put in, for example, siding less than 25%, that goes to the county. That absolutely has to go to the county. So we will need permits for those things. So it's not going to be as clean as them not getting a permit. It'll require, maybe we add something that where the Sussex County requires a permit, they must go through us to get the permit because we need to send them a referral. Because they're not going to do it unless we send a referral over there. Or if we open it up carte blanche, then we won't know what is going on as far as people following the proper business, the code section that you're saying to change. There is going to be a loss of dollars, not much. And to reiterate what we do right now, if there's an emergency, we have always allowed people to do emergencies, and most people give that to us clearly, and they respond usually the next day or the next business day, whatever, and they apply for the permit. And we've never stopped anybody for emergency. Now, I have to say, I don't recall us getting 50 permits or any of that kind of volume from commercial operations. Never. I don't recall that coming in any year to the town. So there is work that's going on without permitting, and we understand that. So we haven't jumped into that. But we do, it puts our code enforcement officer in a very precarious position going on when he sees work being done with no notification in advance. So I'm not quite sure how we solve that problem. And also, I'm not quite sure what we're going to be doing in inspections if it's over $15,000 and they do a kitchen. Are we just going to verify a kitchen remodeling was done? Is that our point and then leave? Is that it? Is that what the expectation is? So those are some of the questions we would have from permitting. And, we'll do the best that we can. As far as developing a form, I think we can come up with something for people to let us know between $1,000 and $10,000. They can still file an application and we'll look at it and file it someplace. We'll open up we can bury it into the application form that they submitted and make a notation, no permit required. So we'll work with you, but I'm just saying it's going to be a challenge for us to follow up with all these, with the potential changes and us running into issues with the community as to why is somebody looking to see what's being done. So that's what we run into, and we hear it all the time, and we do address it with code enforcement. But they get our code enforcement officer gets a bad rap for going out and seeing commercial vehicles out there and no permit or and somebody saying it's under $1,000 when we don't know what's going on. So I just bring that up. That is an issue I think we're going to have to address at some point. But we'll follow whatever you suggest. I want to make that clear.
Mr. Mayor, if I might?
Yes, Commissioner Gibbons.
I don't want to complicate this any more than it already is. However, based on conversations I've been overhearing and as I've been reading through proposals, might it be appropriate to have one ordinance for residents and one for commercial entities in town?
I think that's a wonderful topic for a future decision in terms of separating them out and being able to, for example, what Mr. Spence said, getting a report on a regular basis and applying whatever fee structure we determine versus an ongoing from a residential standpoint. But that doesn't eliminate the fact that we can move. The intent here was to move forward and make the process easier and to raise the baseline up. And I think we can do that and then address the residential versus commercial in the future.
That sounds good.
Yeah, and Jim Dede's raised the question of inspections. Really, the purpose of the inspections is really to, well, first of all, the town can designate the inspection official. It does not have to be somebody in town. The cost of that inspection would be added to the cost of the building permit. But the idea is that the inspection would validate that the work is done up to code, the Dewey Beach Code, doesn't violate any FEMA requirements, since 2/3 of the town is in a floodplain. That the work that is done is what was described in the building permit. Again, we're talking about projects that are over $15,000. That I think would help to alleviate a lot of concerns that people have raised about the whole building permit process and not validating that the work that was requested in the building permit is actually what was done. In terms of the thresholds that we established, the $1,000 threshold, there is no specific FEMA number. You're not going to get a specific number out of FEMA. The only number I've been able to find is in a 20-year-old document that talks about perhaps, some municipalities use a $500 threshold for not requiring a building permit for activities that are clearly maintenance and, small projects and don't have any or would not have any impact on any of the FEMA flood requirements. We decided to use $1,000. We can discuss the threshold. It doesn't have to be $1,000. It could be $2,000, it could be $3,000. But we did talk about the $10,000 threshold. We were originally going to raise the threshold to $3,500 if we were talking just about materials cost, but we went to $10,000 since we thought it would be easier to monitor and enforce if we were talking about total cost, including cost, materials and labor. The other issue with respect to the $10,000 threshold was we wanted to try to develop some sort of balance, not have the revenue loss in building permits to be too extensive. So we think it would be about $20,000 by going to that $10,000 threshold. And I would say building permits is an important revenue source for the town. It's not one of the largest, but it is 20% of those revenues goes into our infrastructure account. And that does fund or help to fund a number of projects that we have throughout the town. I hear the problem that the businesses face, certainly. I think the key is that we have documentation. All of the properties that are listed in this handout here are all smack in the middle of the flood zone. So they're all subject to all the FEMA requirements, and it's important for the town, I think, to have documentation on the work that's done so that they can demonstrate to FEMA that, we, the town, and the businesses in the town are all abiding by the flood requirements that FEMA has established. So I think I would certainly be receptive to working out something where there would be a regular reporting. These are the projects that have been done, and these are all $1,000 or less, and that lets the businesses go ahead and get the work done, and it lets the town have the kind of documentation that's necessary to, when FEMA comes in to look at the records, we have the documentation that we can show them that we really are abiding by the requirements. I don't know, in terms of proceeding, if we were to go forward with what we have so far, it still leaves the problem for the businesses.
And I think we can address that in the near future.
But do we really want to move forward with this, or talk about this just in terms of residential requirements and then come back and fit
Well, the
in
code is set
commercial?
up as both business and residential.
It is, yeah. But I mean, there's nothing to say that we can't set up something on a separate basis.
In the
Fred, did you have a comment on how best to proceed?
Well,
this ordinance is supposed to relax the current standards that are applicable to both residential and commercial properties.
But do you see a problem with us having a separate, let's assume that we move forward with this tonight.
So, yeah, I don't. I think to try and bifurcate at this point in today's meeting between residential and commercial would mean you'd have to delete the entirety of your current statute, I think, and start kind of all over, as opposed to amending it. I think it would be too big a job. Because right now the commercial establishments are governed by what's in the code, and you'd have to take all that out. And I just don't know that that's possible. I also would question whether it's appropriate given the notice that we've
Correct.
posted.
It's not going to happen tonight. So
On the inspections, though, I had some additional comments to Jim Dedes and Mr. Perkinger. I think it's important that we, not just for ourselves, but also for our residents and businesses, really detail what these inspections are. My understanding is the county handles plumbing inspections, the county handles electrical inspections. I think if you have a project of a certain size, they probably do foundation things like that, inspections. Those are handled at the county level. Some commenters say they want us as a town to have more oversight. Some people in town, they kind of want us to have more oversight. From my perspective, we should be saying what's being inspected. We certainly should be inspecting the scope of the project to make sure that the scope of the project adheres to what was asked for. And we should also be inspecting for town code compliance, that they're complying with town code. We could potentially go a little further than that in some areas. You mentioned FEMA and whatnot, but I think if we have inspection language in here, I definitely feel we should put in this thing exactly what we're inspecting for, so that there's no misunderstanding about what this is really about.
Well, I would just say, in terms of inspections, if the inspection includes adherence to the code, if the work is adhering to the code, then that means that they're adhering to Section 101, which is our flood damage reduction section of the code. So in that sense, they would be adhering to FEMA requirements. And I think it does say in here already that the inspection would cover making sure that the work that is done is what was applied for in the building permit. Those are the two key things that.
Well,
that I see.
it said code, it didn't say town code, and so a lot of people interpret that to mean building code.
Yeah. Well, they might interpret it that way, but that's not an appropriate
So we'll make that
interpretation.
amendment.
Right, that's
It
zoning
should certainly
code.
be town code.
Zoning code would be, but I mean, that's a cursory review. I mean, you can't have two kitchens. You can't apply for a permit to put in one kitchen and then put in two, for instance. I mean, that would be a zoning code issue.
It should either say zoning code or town code from my perspective.
we'll change the town code if we move forward with this. But again, when you read that language, we reserve, meaning that we can go in and do an inspection, does mean that we will inspect everyone.
May I make a comment on the inspections? We do right now additions, any major work that requires major renovation. We'll come in and look at that. In particular, additions and new structures, we go out, we look at the bedrooms to see how many bedrooms they have. We look at the driveway, we look at the landscaping, and we look at the zoning, and the setbacks. And that's really to the extent that we get involved in. And we do look at kitchens, by the way, to make sure they don't do that. But other than that, we don't do anything with the any inspection that we do. Now, on regular stuff, sometimes we will go out if they request us to come in. But it's not required, so we would have to have, as the code would say, we'd have to have, as a proposed code, we would have some right to go in and inspect it. And I'm not quite sure whether we have to give notice ahead of time or what, or we would have to include it in our building permits that the town, we can add a clause in there, town will conduct an inspection. And quite frankly, I don't know how much that's going to cost if we have to bring in somebody else in to help us out. So we'd have to figure out that as well.
Well, the idea is that cost would be borne by the property owner, not the town.
No, I understand, and I
Yeah,
don't know
okay.
how that we would, I mean, I don't know what that cost would be, and I don't know how that would work. We haven't reached that level of analysis as far as
Right.
what people do and cost factors.
where are we? Town Hall. But in summary, is what Commissioner Pershing said and what Ms. Lyons has said, this was an attempt to bring us into the current standards from a value standpoint, from a number standpoint, to simplify the process, to ease the burden on the town and therefore the town officials in terms of the building side of it. When I look through what Commissioner Persinger and Ms. Lyons put together, we can see where the changes are. I believe that was there one revision that we had to this, one modification that, David, you had brought up?
There was a spelling error on 74, line 74.
Yeah, and
Maybe a
insert the
couple
word
typos in here, yeah.
town in front of code.
And town in front of code, thanks, Paul, that's what I was thinking of. So that we come back to, well, what I need is, now we've discussed this, if we're in agreement to move forward with raising and putting this in place, there'd be a motion with a modification to some of the language, or at least if there's a modification to hold off on some of the penalties or some of the inspection items to at least get the dollar figure to the various buckets in place. But I'll leave that to you for what you'd like to see.
I'm not sure what you mean by the last part.
Well, I didn't know if you wanted to hold off on the inspection side, because what I just heard from Mr. Didi is that we don't have a process in place, we don't have a mechanism in place right now for a certain
Well,
area.
I think we would have to have some sort of delayed effective date for this, just to provide some time for the town to really crank things up and be ready to implement this. So, are we talking 30,
January
60,
1st?
90 days?
We're transitioning building officials. I would almost think we'd want a little bit more time than that, because someone's got to get on board, kind of get used to it.
Right.
Stuff like that. So I would be
So
okay
with
with
a goal
like
of maybe 4/1, the new fiscal year?
4/1 would be,
Yeah. And hopefully we'd be able to figure out the commercial side of this.
I agree.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do think that we should include, if we're going to do a motion, the language that this is just a suggestion, maintenance says is needed on an emergency basis, may proceed immediately with notification of the town within X business days.
Yes, yeah, I think that's a good change.
The maintenance must still comply with all town code rules.
Okay.
There's something that keeps people from lumping, dividing it up into
Like Jimmy
much
said,
smaller. Yeah, so how do we prevent that?
You mentioned that, I didn't answer it. So one of the reasons why I originally was like, we really need to specify what the activities are, like these are the things you could do, was because I had that exact concern. And because the maintenance activities are listed pretty specifically, there's not really an opportunity for someone to completely renovate their place under this, because it would encompass activities that aren't allowed by this.
Oh, okay.
You'd be moving drywall, you know what I mean, things like that, moving electrical fixtures, all kinds of stuff.
All right.
Okay.
Let's tackle it. Let's make the motion.
You, David, you're the one that's been out of the country. It's your penalty.
Welcome back.
It's vacation.
Am I being punished?
Yes, you are.
Oh,
Tired of
Lord.
seeing you on Zoom.
I don't. I'm gonna need some help with the changes. So let's see here. So,
A motion to adopt.
yeah, I gotta get the thing back up here. So I looked,
Do we have to have the specifics changes or just
In
make
general.
reference to the changes as discussed and then formalize those in the document?
Well, I think we should try.
Okay,
All right.
all right.
so I'll do a motion to adopt the ordinance to amend chapter 116 with the following changes, which some other people can help me fill in. One, that is inspections shall refer to town code, not just code.
And where is that language?
Where it says inspections.
We would
It's
amend
on
1-16 and also chapter 71.
Correct.
Yes, that is correct. And then it's line 100 and 101. And then we will add a provision that says that maintenance that is needed on an emergency basis may proceed immediately with notification to the town within how many business days? 1 or more than 1?
I would go probably more than that, 30 days, 5 days.
Within 5 business days. The maintenance must still comply with all town codes. The effective date of this ordinance will be April 1st.
First, 2026.
2026. I didn't have anything else. Did anyone
That's
else
it.
have anything else?
There was that one typo on 74. You don't need to.
We'll fix the typos.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do I have
I'll second that.
any other discussion?
So can I make a suggestion that you might want to capture Mr. Dede's comment about the town, or the complying with county code,
I think you.
county regulations?
Yeah, I think that was part of it, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's part of it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, passed unanimously. And just to Mr. Spence, we will look at a separate commercial application on this, because we understand your world. All right.
Mr. Mayor, does that adoption include the April deadline that it would go?
Yes, yes, it did.
Thank you.
Okay. Last item on the agenda, discuss recommendations from the Charter and Code Committee regarding minimum standards for property maintenance. Let's just discuss. The council may vote to draft an ordinance based on 3 recommendations to be discussed at future meetings. Okay, Commissioner Persinger. God bless you.
God bless.
So, excuse me, this is, as the mayor said, this is a discussion item. We may, at the end of our discussion, vote to draft a specific ordinance, which would reflect any changes that we might make in the recommendations here. This is the work of the Charter and Code Review Committee. It was prompted, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chairman Lyons, but correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this was initiated at the town's request because right now, Section 138 of our code has standards for commercial properties, but there's really very little in the way of standards for residential properties. The only standards that are dealt with in 138 are with respect to weeds and vegetation in residential properties. So this is an attempt to, I think, take some education from what other towns and cities have done, what's in some of the standard building codes, and to try to pull this together and make this applicable for Dewey Beach. So there's a recommendation here. There are recommendations for exterior structures. The first idea here is that they should be maintained in clean, good repair, structurally sound and sanitary. External structures should be maintained so as not to cause a blighting problem. The word blight is used in a couple of the recommendations here. I tend to think that that's a little bit problematic. It's not specific enough. One person's blight may be another person's beauty. It's a little hard to tell. So I think there would have to be some specifics added to that. There are some examples of what other towns have done in terms of not quantifying, but describing what a blighted property or blighted premises might be. And it could include things like missing or boarded up windows or doors, collapsing or missing walls, roofs or floors, siding that's seriously damaged or missing fire damage, a foundation that's structurally faulty, or other structural deficiencies that contribute to blight as determined by the enforcement officer. That's just some examples. We would have to craft some specific language that would be appropriate for Dewey Beach. But I just think in general, if we're going to talk about a blighting problem, we really have to do a better job of defining what that might mean. There's some, so that would apply, I think, both to exterior structures and vacant structures. Under exterior structure, there is the second bullet here that talks about environmental hazards such as mold, asbestos, or lead paint exposure. I think that's a little difficult for the town to monitor and to enforce. A lot of this, I think, is most important that those kinds of things not occur inside the property. You're not going to observe so much that's outside the property. We do have, I should mention, for rental properties, we do have a safety certification checklist that everyone has to go through and check off that they actually are abiding by all of these requirements in order to get a rental license in Dewey Beach. Mold is addressed there. I think rodents and infestations like that is also described there. We may decide that that is sufficient, that we're only worried about rental properties. We want to extend the concern to other residential properties as well. Sidewalks and driveways maintained free from hazardous conditions and safe for use. There is some discussion here about landscaping. As I said, Section 138 does have some requirements now with respect to weeds and vegetation, but it's not terribly specific. This would intend to try to provide some specifics here, particularly with respect to uncontrolled vegetation, including weeds or plant growth that exceeds 12 inches in height. So, if you have a grassy front yard and it's 12 inches or more, the town could step in at that point and have some sort of enforcement action at that point. Rodent harborage structures and exterior property should be kept free from rodent harborage and infestation, and there would be some requirements for eliminating those if that's found. Accessory structures, including swimming pools, hot tubs, detached garages, fences, and walls, shall be maintained structurally sound and good repair. I think some of that's going to be a little bit difficult to enforce. I'm not sure if we need more specifics on that or not. Accumulation of rubbish or garbage. I think when the Charter and Code Committee talked about this, they picked up the term rubbish, which is not defined in our code, but it must appear in some of the other general property maintenance codes. I'm not sure that we need to do anything here because in the trash section of our code, which is, excuse me, the specific section of the code, but this was something that was implemented about 10 years ago when there was a real full-scale, there was a committee devoted to the trash situation, and we came up with the single vendor for all of the residents to use in disposing of trash. But there's a distinction there between garbage and refuse. And I think those two terms are sufficiently comprehensive that I don't think we really need to change anything on this particular issue with respect to rubbish or garbage. Drainage and stormwater management. Property should be graded to prevent the accumulation of stagnant water and to direct runoff away from structures. I can see that being a requirement for new properties. I'm not sure how we would have a requirement for existing properties. We do have in the code already some requirements with respect to guttering and downspouts. If you increase the impervious surface area, roof surface area of your property, you have to have gutters and downspouts. All properties, if they have gutters and downspouts, have to make sure that the water that comes out of those downspouts is contained within the property. You can run your line out to within 4 feet of the property line, but if that's not sufficient to keep the water on your property, then you have to take other measures. That's already part of the code. It was an ordinance that was passed within the last year or so, I believe. There's a more general requirement that could be viewed as stringent, more stringent. All water generated on a property, including stormwater, irrigation runoff, and similar sources shall be managed entirely within the boundaries of the property. Again, we have requirements with respect to gutters and downspouts, but we don't have a general requirement that be the case. There's provision here with respect to graffiti and vandalism, and that has to be removed within a specified time frame. Storage, outdoor storage of trailers, mobile homes, campers, and similar large vehicles or equipment is prohibited on residential property unless fully enclosed within a permitted structure or specifically authorized by zoning regulations. I think, in fact, they actually are specifically authorized already by zoning regulations. In Table 1, there are accessory uses that are approved uses and storage of, get the specific language here. In Table 1 of 185-23, storage of a boat trailer or recreational vehicle or a boat or travel trailer or motor home, but not mobile homes, but not in a front yard or side yard adjacent to a street, provided it's not used for living purposes. So that's an acceptable thing. You can store those kinds of things on your property under the current zoning regulations. But you just can't, have them in the front yard. It can't be a mobile home. You can't live there while they're in storage. You have similar provisions in 185-25 with respect to residential business properties, the RB1, RB2, and 3. Then there are some suggested enforcement issues here. But let me stop there and see if there are any comments. I've gotten some comments by email. I think those are certainly all good comments. This is an open issue here. We're willing to consider any comments. This is not we're not in any sense trying to force anything through here. So again, I would appreciate any public input.
Start with public input. Anyone here would like to comment? Come on up.
State your name. Where are you
Name
from?
and address.
You haven't seen me in a while. I'm Cindy Souza. I live on West Street, and I am full-time here. When I read and I listened to the Charter and Code Committee meeting about all of these issues, the first reaction that I had, having owned a home here in Dewey for it will be 40 years in 2026. So I have a long history here, and I've seen a lot of the changes that have occurred. We have never been a town that has had grave oversight on the residents of our town. However, I understand that with new construction happening, with more full-time people being here, that some of those changes have to be addressed and changes have to be made according to that. But I guess when I'm reading these proposed new regulations, the question that I have is, what is the problem? Or what is the problem that is trying to be addressed? Is there a problem that needs to be addressed? I understand, like, for instance, the walkways and driveways to be safe to be used. Those are on personal property. So if you are rebuilding a house, if you are doing major renovations, building codes will address how they have to be built and maintained. So if you are looking at an older cottage where somebody is still using and living in it, are you going to go up and say your walkway is unsafe or your driveway is unsafe? Well, how do you determine what is safe or what isn't safe? There are, and frankly, if somebody falls on my property, my homeowner's insurance takes care of those issues. We talk about sidewalks and keeping them clean, keeping the snow and ice off of them. Well, in the north end of town, there is nobody who lives next to the sidewalk that is here during the winter. So who's going to take care of that? Who's going to notify them that there's more than 2 inches on the ground on their sidewalk that they need to come and take care of? If you want to talk about overgrown areas, come to the south corner of West Street and Route 1. I appreciate the fact that the town comes and they mow a little stretch of land there, but there's a huge pile of overgrown weeds and bushes. And then frankly, over the past couple of summers, we see people who are sleeping in those bushes. It is what it is at this point. So should the town come? Should the homeowner who lives on that corner take care of those bushes? Those are questions I'm asking. I'm not giving an answer for. The rubbish and the garbage, when I read that you don't want people putting garbage in somebody else's can, well, I don't know what you do about that. If in my street, there are literally 4 full-time people, 3 in the Ocean Block, me in the second block. Who's going to monitor who puts what in my neighbor's garbage? Who's going to tell them, in January something happened? Somebody's walking their dog down the street and they decide to put the poop bag in there. Who's going to tell them who it was? You've asked, in the comments here, there were, how are you going to monitor gutters and downspouts to be clear and functional? I don't know how you do that. Unless the gutters are literally falling off of the house. And those will only be new properties because none of the old cottages had gutters. You talk about graffiti. I have to say, I've never seen graffiti in our town. Maybe this is addressing a future problem that you're potentially anticipating. I don't know. Boats and campers on a 50 by 100 foot lot, I don't know where they're going to put them in the back. I don't know. You've talked about having only a boat in a front yard or parked for a maximum of 2 weeks. What happens if that homeowner rents out their property and the 3 people out of 6 weeks have a boat? And it's, 3 different people bring their boat for 2 weeks. Who's going to say which one gets to do it? Or is it 3 different boats can park for 2 weeks maximum? I don't know. And I would just say that if somebody can park their boat in their front yard, then you've got to make sure that their whole entire yard is not the boat and then they have parking, but that their cars are parked in the public right of way. And the only other thing I will say is I'm thrilled that the sidewalks along the whole commercial area have been redone and that they're safe to walk on. So thank you for that. So I guess I just go back to the original question. What's the problem that's trying to be solved? Thank you. Thank you for your time.
I have a thought, if I can jump in.
No, I don't want your thoughts. Anyone else with public comment? Give it to you in a second. You're first. Good, Jim.
Eliminate all the other.
Jim Deegan, 103 Hayden Road. There are a couple of properties that are blights. So I am interested to see what the repercussions is of those houses that, from the town, if you enact this ordinance, does that mean they gotta knock them down? I mean, I just would like to know, think about the enforcement of those blights, because right now they are not, you can't improve them. I mean, it's either you gotta knock them down or, so if you're talking about blights, there are quite a few in our town.
Mr. Hanna?
Sure. Late on a Friday afternoon. Alex Hanna, Clayton Street, Dewey Beach, full-time resident for about 5 years. I just wanted to reinforce what Cindy said. I appreciate this discussion and the time that went into it. I do think it's really challenging to be able to enforce it. I do think what makes Dewey amazing is that we'll have a pride in this amazing small little town. And I think a lot of people do that. There are some exceptions. So I think the bigger question, as Cindy mentioned, is what are we trying to solve for? Where are the issues and how can we really focus on that rather than trying to create conformity for everyone else? We all live here. We all know each other. That's part of what makes this town so special. And I just think at some point we don't need all the rules that are telling us, everything we need to think about. And some people have some natural character to their houses, and that's fun to walk by as you're walking your dog or wherever you're going. And so I would just challenge us to try to find something and really identify what we're trying to solve for.
Ed?
Good evening. It's evening now. Ed Klima, Sweet Street. I agree with the sentiment of what are we trying to solve. At last month's meeting, Commissioner Persner talked about a couple people brought this up. Well, in a town of thousands of residents, I'm not sure why we're trying to create an issue that a couple of people brought up. In a community that has homeowners associations in Delaware, similar to these type of rules, every member of the homeowners association votes on that and whether they want to change something. We don't bring that up in the middle of the winter when a lot of people aren't paying attention to what's going on. I heard the comment about other towns do this. We're not in another town. We're Dewey Beach. We have a way of life here. If we want to live in another town, we move to Rehoboth where there's a lot of restrictions and those types of things. I've heard about a few derelict structures. My understanding is those few derelict structures don't follow existing regulations and ignore letters about things with their properties. what's to think that if you add regulations, they're going to do anything different? That's not, a few bad apples in the town, adding additional regulations isn't going to solve anything. I constantly wonder if we're worried about the state of properties in this town. As I ride around or walk around town every weekend with my wife and my dogs, I don't see, abandoned cars, boats, what have you. It seems like, are we just trying to create revenue generation to pay for things, which certainly that's not what safety is about. And I had to chuckle about the comment of water and downspouts, because when my yard floods, it's because of commercial properties down the street that were never properly designed and regulated by the town, not the residential structures on the street. So obviously, I'm a property rights guy, and I totally don't see the need for this. And I think it is contrary to what Dewey Beach is. Thank you.
Thanks, Ed. Anyone else here? Anyone on the line?
David, go ahead.
Yeah, David Moskowitz, Dewey Beach, full-time resident. And this would be a fundamental change to how our town operates. I submitted a FOIA request, and the town identified only 2 properties as a justification for this proposal. They were isolated and sensitive cases, one involving a hospice patient who has since passed away, and another involving an 84-year-old resident. Using those situations to justify sweeping town-wide regulations is misleading and disproportionate. Those cases call for compassion and targeted solutions, not a regulatory overhaul imposed on every property owner. The draft language is vague and far-reaching. It includes limits on the boats and driveway, the undefined standards like what is blighting, restrictions on recreational equipment, and requirements that all water generated on property be contained, the rain tax. It also allows emergency abatement without prior notice with costs charged to the property owner, and permits the town to deny rental license, building permits, or parking permits for violations or unpaid fines and issue liens. But I want to, more importantly, note conflict concern. One committee member owns a condominium unit that is the landlord to the marina. And while this proposal includes restrictions of boats stored on residential property, and this raises why that member didn't recuse herself and why anyone in the town didn't tell that person they needed to. And recusal is not just not voting, it's stepping out of the meeting. Taken together, this is like a vague HOA enforcement framework being imposed on a beach town. People live here and visit here for the water lifestyle. And this is rules that discourage both residents and visitors, but also would impact elderly homeowners. And right before the holidays, this shouldn't even be voted on. It needs to be put down. Dewey deserves thoughtful, narrow, and fair solutions, not HOA-style rules.
No.
It's not on.
Okay, anyone else? All right. Commissioner Persinger, would you like to make any other comments?
Yeah, I've heard overwhelming support for what's been proposed here. I guess the question is, in what we have in the code right now deals with weeds and vegetation. It's not specific, but it basically says, if you're the enforcement officer, you go out and you see a property and you think it really is overgrown, the bushes are hiding the windows, and the property clearly looks like it's abandoned. Do we have enough in the code right now, in your view, to pursue some sort of action against that property owner, or at least with respect to the exterior appearance of a property? Should we have something more specific, something that's more enforceable, something that the town can use to, when there is an obvious problem, is there enough teeth in what we have, or do we need to add some teeth so that the town is in a better position to make that property look better? If you've got suggestions, we can come back with a slimmed down set of those kinds of things if you think that's valuable, or is this something that, in the view of what the people in the room here and people on the call, is this something we should just abandon and just go with what we have in the code already?
I'll follow that up with one comment, and that is, we're here representing all of you in this capacity. Our goal, and Bill Zolper told me, public safety is my #1 concern. in terms of whether it's the beach or the police, like just making sure that anybody who lives here, who visits here feels safe in what we do. The second thing is you look at the overall values, and the value of your home, your investment, your life. And we just want to make sure that no one impedes on that or takes away from what you have. We don't want to take anything away from you. We want to make sure that you are protected. And the rules that we put together are also protect you against your neighbor, or your neighbor against a neighbor for you. So personally, I go to the podium, Bill Stevens, resident, Dewey Beach, full-time resident. I don't not all of these things I agree with. For example, if I have a boat, where am I going to put the boat if I can't put it on the street and I can't put it in the marina? It's got to go in the driveway. And does it really make sense to put it enclosed? I mean, it's just going to be a challenge. So I see that as a resident, but I want you to understand that's the reason why we're talking about it, to at least have the conversation, to protect your property rights, to protect you guys, and from a safety standpoint. So.
I think, from my perspective, a lot of the stuff in here is well-meaning. Some of it's kind of hard to figure out, how you would really do it and where it would be overkill and where it would make sense. One thing in here that I do think that we should definitely try to do is around drainage and stormwater management, where someone wrote that water generated on a property when you have new construction, you need to handle it within the property and not drain to your neighbors and drain to the street. That's becoming a bigger and bigger problem in town. And I was glad that they put that in there. I think that's a good idea. If you have new construction, that you need to figure out your water and drainage problems.
I actually thought that was part of the existing code. All right.
Okay, so the other thing I would mention is I bought my first place here in 1998, and the neighbors came up a month later saying how thrilled they were that we bought it and cleaned the place up, because fixer-upper would be an understatement. I mean, this place was just horrible, but they were using the front yard as basically a junkyard / garbage dump, I mean, literally. And the neighbors were thanking us because obviously, we cleaned it up right away, but what they mentioned was that there was really nothing in the code to stop them from having, old appliances and stuff like that just littered across the front yard. And that doesn't happen very often. People mention there are 1 or 2 blighted houses where that's probably a little bit of a problem. But I do think that if you're the neighbor or someone who chooses to do that it just kind of sucks. And the town should have a way to basically, when you get a certain degree of blight, to force people to do it or to pay for it and put a lien on the property, if you clean it up. So I think there are some things that are in here that we could be doing. I don't know that everything, I think a lot of the things in here probably are a little bit overreach, people are kind of alluding to, but I think that there are definitely some things in here that we could be looking at, trying to craft an ordinance around.
You good?
Yeah, I look at, county has a code, and municipalities can always be more restrictive, just can't be less restrictive. I'd like to see what we have put together here, what's wrong with what the county code says, and why are we trying to go further in some areas? Or if we're not, just go with the county code. It should give everybody enough teeth to do what they have to do.
Commissioner Gibbons, you want to weigh in, or are you?
No, I'd be glad to weigh in. I'm going to hold some of it for comments at the end. I do want us to avoid becoming an HOA town. In my other residence, we had somebody parking the tractor part of a tractor trailer on the street, and they have now imposed laws that we can't park on the street at all because of that. It makes it difficult when people come to visit, because where am I going to put their cars? I have a single car driveway. So again, what problem are we trying to fix? How can we not be a HOA, but also keep us safe and attractive? And attractive, I realize, is subjective.
Thank you. Go ahead, you finish.
Yeah, my suggestion here is that we not take any kind of formal vote at this point, but that I'm willing to try to cull out of this whole set of recommendations a smaller set that might be acceptable to people, and then we can come back and talk about it again. I mean, I think there are, some pockets of problems that people have pointed to, but I think overall the general reaction is this goes too far, and we need to pare it back. And so I will do that. I'll come up with a slimmer set of these recommendations or ideas, and then we'll come back and discuss it again and see where we go from there.
Thank you, sir. All right, we'll move on to the closing of the meeting. Commissioner comments. Commissioner Gibbings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I always appreciate the opportunity to have the give and take that we have as council members. I learn more and I think more as a result of that. It was fabulous today to have so much community involvement as well. As the only commissioner that uses she, her pronouns, I do want to respond to a recent comment saying that I should have recused myself from this meeting. I do live in a condominium. My condominium does not have a marina, and there was no need for me to recuse myself from any conversations held today. With that said, I want to thank the chief and all of her officers that showed up in uniform to provide support for the Jewish community as we lit the menorah on the Baywalk last weekend with things that have been happening in the world. It meant so much to have that support right there with me. Thank you.
Commissioner Jasinski.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Commissioner Barrett.
Ditto. Happy holidays, everybody, and thank you, Chief, and your staff, and Bill, and Kate, and everybody that works hard here. Sheena, thank you.
Yeah, I want to echo some comments that Dave Lyons offered earlier. I've worked over the past several years on a number of different ordinances with respect to zoning and other parts of our town code. I've worked with Jim Dedes and Dawn Hinks over that time, and I think they both have done an excellent job. Dawn Hinks is now leaving us, and I just want to say I think she did an excellent job, and she's leaving the building department in much better shape than she found it. You're here. And happy holidays to everyone.
Yes, everyone has happy holidays on their comments. So from my own perspective, happy holidays. Please have a safe holiday. For future meetings, I believe our next meeting is January 16th. Is that correct, Kate? Now, I'll prepare the town. That'll be a long meeting. It is a 1 to 3 budget meeting. There'll be a 3 to 5 town meeting. And then we also have executive session that we'll need to go into. So it'll be a long day. So come hydrated and fed. With that, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.